Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Fellowship of Fandoms podcast episode. We are back, House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 7. As all House of the Dragon / Game of Thrones episodes, penultimate episodes, it is a big one. A lot of big things happen. Status quo keeps changing. So yeah, it's going to be fun to discuss all of this. And because it's such a big episode, we have also an expert with us. But before that, I'll just quickly say hello to Shiv, who's, as the three people watching this, as you know, the two of us have been covering all the episodes. So hello, Shiv.
Hello. Very excited being here today. Not only was it an exciting episode, but we are here with someone to help us along the way with the lore, and it feels like having a personal lore expert with us, which is just so exciting.
Absolutely, and this personal lore expert is none other than Geek, aka Robert. Hello, thank you so much for being with us. Good evening, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you so much. Very kind words. An honor to be here. I'm excited by this channel. It is going to be excellent, I feel sure, and I'm looking forward to chatting about the episode. A lot went on.
It really did. It's a big one, and yet we somehow have only 5 talking points. So let's kind of like build up to all the big stuff, and let's start with one of the quote-unquote smaller storylines that are kind of like setting up some other things. So, I mean, not that there are any small things at this point, but Harrenhal. Let's go to Harrenhal. So we have Alicent coming to see Aemond. She's been sent on a mission, unbeknownst to her son, of course, to take her own son's life, as you do in this world. And at the same time, Daemon is having some interesting thoughts, visions, premonitions. I don't know what's going on there. He comes over. Alicent is there with a certain knight that's actually sent there to be the assassin against Aemond. This fails because Aemond is very protective of him being there. Alice, at the same time, is very suspicious of Alicent, and rightfully so, because Alicent actually does almost succeed in her mission here. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, because I've heard some things, and actually I have been following Robert's videos. Like this is one of the things I do. Episode happens, I go watch Robert's videos. So I as far as I know, or as far as I understand things, Alicent doesn't have a huge role at this point in the books. So they kind of, I think, had to like add a little bit to her role. So anyway, this whole plot, all of these things happening in Harrenhal, can you give us like your thoughts about what happened in this episode, and yeah, like any other things you want to add?
Yeah, so you're right. Alicent, basically, in books, basically what happens is that once Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, Alicent almost disappears from the plot. She just gets locked in a room, and she stays there, and she just goes slowly, sadly crazy. She just starts tearing out her hair, and she eventually reaches a point where she's shouting out how she hates the color green. She just seems to be just like getting all of this remorse about everything that's been going on. So all of the plot that we've had in this season is show only. That is quite similar to a lot of the other plot points, which we will come on to in a moment. As for this, I found this one of the funnier parts of the episode. I have to admit, in this episode, I found myself shouting at the screen, laughing, squeeing at one point, all the different range of emotions. As I said, there was a huge amount of things that went on here. But yeah, basically, this is a status quo. Nothing ultimately, I think, has really changed here, other than Aemond now surely will just lean into him, and Alice has turned against him. Then he's there, he's digging in.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great way to also say it. Like, there was a whole range of emotions, and I think this storyline definitely made me laugh, especially Alice's reaction when Aemond comes back poisoned, and then her just one word for him. Shit, what did you think?
Man, now knowing that background of what's in the books and not in the books, of like the writer's room came up with that dream sequence then, so that wasn't in the books.
Nods enthusiastically.
And Damon's last time. So yeah, the writer's room came up with all of this.
All right.
Oh my god. I guess, dare I dive into this? Was the themes of that dream depicted in any fashion between Alicent and Aemond in the book at all? Or is this completely conjured up through the
Because like
writer's
this
room?
whole family gatherings within the Targaryens is a normal stuff for them, but like, is this like an actual thing in the books?
Okay, I can charitably say 95% no, there's nothing in the books. If you want to read something into it, you can read something into it, but there's certainly none of the dream sequences that we see going on here. That's completely new.
Wow, good to know. Good to know. It was a pretty, like, from a, I guess, technical standpoint of the scene, it was a pretty good trick. Like, as a viewer, you're like, oh, this makes sense. Like, last episode, Alicent was heading there, so feasibly, like, they could start the episode that way. But for it to then be a 180 and actually be kind of like a manipulated dream sequence, yeah, I found it pretty interesting still. But it's very interesting to see they're off-roading from the text now with scenes like that. So I'd be curious to see where this ends up.
Yeah, I'm really curious how this will relate to everything, because also, like, it's not like this show has a lot of screen time left, and as far as I understand, there's still a lot of things that need to be done actually in season 4. So it's like, is this one of those things that we needed to throw in there, like similar to like maybe Harvard's plotline in Rings of Power? It's like, we have a very limited number of episodes, huge events. Do we need to play with this as well? But I guess we'll have to wait and see with that.
I mean, my general take is that in the TV show, the central relationship is between Alicent and Rhaenyra. They set that up from the very beginning. Everything keeps on coming back to them. The big moments at the end of either seasons is about Alicent and Rhaenyra. They had a problem having set that up in that, as I said, Alicent largely disappears from the story from this moment on. So how you have to come up with something for her to be doing all this time. And so that, I suspect, is where a lot of this came from, is we have to come up with some plot devices to be driving this forward. So from their perspective, it's not just about the mummy issues thing. I suspect this is also about the dynamic between Alicent and Rhaenyra, which, when you think about it, is in and of itself kind of dark, in that Rhaenyra has said, okay, in order to win your freedom and for that of your daughter, you have to go off and kill your son, which is, we kind of gloss over this because there's other things happening which are a little bit more awkward, but she has done that, and without putting up much of a fight. Helena challenges her last episode and said, you could say no, but without putting up much of a fight, she said, all right, I'll go there and I'll kill my son. So, yeah, this is pretty dark stuff.
Yeah. I think Alicent is kind of this position where, not that I'm in any sense a good player of chess, but it's like that point where, okay, you're like, okay, I think I'm going to lose this one, but you kind of have to, you kind of keep winning, like you kind of like keep withdrawing, sacrificing this, and that's kind of like Alicent at this point. Like, it feels like she's getting cornered to the point where she only has like Helena and the baby, basically. So she's like, okay, now I discard Aemond. This is what I have left. And then let's hope I get Helena back. I guess that's, she's in a terrible spot. Yeah. Speaking of terrible spots, it doesn't seem to be so terrible. At least Sir Ormond Hightower doesn't seem to think so. But let's go to Tumbleton. So the Tully army is advancing, and we know that they have scouted them. Things are not looking good for Tumbleton. Tumbleton also isn't a big fortress, even though they have been kind of working on preparing that place for at least some kind of siege. They are also being watched by the dragons. We'll get back to that little point also in a second. We had Prince Darren considering surrendering, and also at the same time we see Corlys, who was kidnapped at the end of the previous episode, being like arriving as a hostage, and then being interrogated in a way by Ormond. And then toward the end of the episode, or basically like one of the last scenes, is that actually we see that Sir Ulf betrayed Rhaenyra, and we see him just dining with the Greens on a hill, just having the best time. I feel like Sir Ulf is kind of like maybe like a very dark version of Bilbo Baggins. Like, he just wants to have beer, sit, food, talk with his friends, have a nice time, like, just, and these dragons and Targaryens keep getting in the way. So anyway, I'll just go with this one. I'll go to Shiv first, and then we can move back to see a bit more about the lore. So Shiv, what are your thoughts on this whole storyline?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to jump into the Ulf thing. It's almost like he's playing a rebellious teenager, where in the previous episodes he gets kind of put down by Damon. He's told not to go drinking with his buddies, so now he's rebelling against his parents. And finding a new ally who's basically promising all the things he wants. Right? Like, oh, you want this kingdom? We'll give you a bigger one. So I feel like he's getting used. I have a bad feeling about where he's going to end up from my personal experience with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon show, but we'll have to see there. But I guess a high level question for Robert would be, because, me not knowing much of the lore, was Tumbleton a big place in Fire and Blood? Like, was it referenced a lot, or was this another invention of the show of like, oh, this town's close by, let's put Ormond here? Is there an actual storyline with this in the books?
Yes, 100%. So this is one of, without wishing to spoil too much here, this is one of the significant moments in the war, Tumbleton. So broadly speaking, Ormond and Darren moved their armies very, very slowly, and eventually it kind of like came to a halt at Tumbleton, and then we get something roughly what we've got going on now. There are tweaks and there are differences, but yes, this is a very significant moment. They seem to have moved it slightly closer to King's Landing for various reasons, I suspect, but broadly speaking, yeah, it's there. It's a town. He was in there. Darren was there with his dragon, and we have the Ulf and Hugh, who are sort of like hanging around there as well. Don't forget about Hugh in this as well. We focused in on Ulf. I will say, I'm glad he got his beer. That's leaving everything else aside. A man does need his beer.
Absolutely.
So don't forget about Hugh as well. If you remember last episode, he thought that he was on this mission to go and rescue his wife, and she's basically turned him down. So what headspace he's going to be in is quite significant here. So the state of these armies, we've got an army coming to attack, we've got an army defending. The army coming to attack thought, well, we've got 2 dragons there already, and they've only got one small one defending it. But actually, what we know is happening is whatever other dragons might turn up, there are now 2 there on Ormond's team, assuming Ulf is now switching sides because it having been bought off, and we do not know whether Hugh is going to, which side he's going to go to. What's he going to do? Is he going to stick around? Is he going to go away? He was all about finding his wife. So suddenly the team attacking might not be in as strong a position as they think they are. So I'm not going to say that Ormond has played a strong game here, but it's certainly improved over the last episode or so.
And Strider, that kind of, it sounds like that might be potentially solidifying one of my original theories with Hugh. And I don't know if Robert has a good poker face, but one of my theories was ooh, that is good. That is good. One of my theories was, because Hugh's wife is in Tumbleton, he has an obligation to protect her while being on technically the assaulting force to Tumbleton. So I'm wondering if he's going to attempt to save his wife by squandering, I guess you could say, some of the attacks on Tumbleton. I feel like that is a strong possibility.
Yeah.
And he's a good poker face. Good poker face.
That's a great poker face. I would have laughed already if I was him. Respect. Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting personal conflict there because, yeah, as has been pointed out, Hugh having this one purpose and then having that whole, to say the least, very awkward conversation with his wife in the previous episode, and then now having Ulf with this, and like a sieging army, or a besieging army, I'm not sure what's the proper term, like a besieging army needs to have a very big advantage, numerically speaking, as a general rule, when attacking a fortified place. So if you have 2 dragons, or at least 1 dragon, you do have a big advantage. But yeah, now that it might suddenly be 1-1. I don't know. I'm not sure how useful that. I mean, I guess dragon is a dragon. If it flies, it's useful. So even Darren's dragon would probably be a solid buff for the defenders. But yeah, now it literally might end up being like 2 versus 1 in the favor of greens, which is a very interesting turn. And this episode in general really did feel like this is the point where the tide turns, because also another thing happened that maybe we'll get back to at the end of the conversation. So yeah, I guess I would have like maybe with all this in mind, but I think that I've heard actually maybe one of your videos or somewhere else, there were more than one, I don't know if this is a spoiler, more than one episode for Tumbleton. I think at this point there probably won't be more than one because they kind of have to constrain things. Could you share a bit more without any big spoilers?
What I can say is I have no inside information about the show on what the show is going to do. Clearly, this whole storyline has been building up to season end finale kind of thing. So something big is going to go down in Tumbleton in episode 8. That's not spoiling anything. I suspect you can even watch the trailer and see something big happening there. Yeah, in the books, what I can say is that there is shorthand for Tumbleton 1 and Tumbleton 2. So that may well be as in 2 things happen there, basically, to what could be 2 episodes. Now, it's entirely possible if the showrunners look around and go, hang on a moment, we've only got 8 episodes to go, we probably should squash them together. It would not surprise me if they do, but I've got no inside information whether that's where they're going or not.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I just wish, we didn't live in a time of, I guess, capitalism. It would be just so nice to have, hey, here's make as many episodes you need to make to put all the stuff on screen, and take your time. You don't have to cut any shortcuts. Just go tell the story and let us enjoy it, and let's have 2 battles for Tumbleton. I will say there was a previous episode called Tumbleton, episode 4 or episode 5 maybe. I just want you to know that my friend here was in charge of naming it, and he gave it the best possible name. Actually, what was the name of that episode?
Let's get ready to Tumbleton.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, and I think that might that should maybe be the name for the next episode. Okay, I'll just do one more quick question for this storyline here. What is your opinion, Robert? Because I mean, Shiv and I have kind of discussed these things already on the depictions of Sir Gawain, Sir Ormond, and Darren. I know I know some of them, or all 3 of them, might even have enough material to have like single videos for each of them. But just like, if you can just give us like a quick opinion on this. Especially, I'm kind of curious about Ormond in the books.
Yeah, so they have expanded all of those characters. So I wouldn't say that we don't have huge amounts of information about Ormond, but all of the, shall we say quirky, shall we say disturbing characteristics that are there, they're not in the book. So like the smell sensitivity thing is not in the book. The casual racism, homophobia, whatever, every ism he's got that he kind of throws out, that doesn't appear to be there. He has quite a few of them. So he does appear to have had this kind of drive to in the books to be putting Darren on the throne, and the clear implication was that he was wanting to be the power behind the throne, which is definitely transferred across onto the TV show. But they've given him more of a reach. Let's put it that way. So what we see on the show is a character who is out there. He's orchestrating the events that are happening in King's Landing, which could have happened in the books, but it's never like 100%. It seems a lot more sort of organic of what's going on there, and as a result of a lot of things some things that Rhaenyra is doing. Also, him going out getting Corlys, that's not in the books. Him going and trying to turn Ulf to his side is hinted at in the books, because in the books, Ulf, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, in the books, Ulf does switch sides, which he appears to be doing here.
It seems to be, yeah.
And the clear implication is that Ormond did send some people to sort of offer him something, but it's never spelt out. For those who have not read Fire and Blood, it is written as an in-world history book by this rather crusty old maester who's got these different sources, and he sort of says, well, this person says such and such a thing happened, this person says such and such a thing happened, I don't believe those things, I think maybe this happened. And so there's not much absolute 100% truth in the book, where as a reader, you're invited to kind of trace through what you think is the most likely set of events. So that's what made this a slightly more awkward thing to be adapting to the TV, it has to be said, but it leaves these big gaps where I choose to believe Ormond did proactively go out and try to turn Ulf's side rather than Ulf sort of on his own bat deciding to sort of switch sides and see what's going to go on. But we don't know that for a fact. So in Ormond, they've increased his role and they've made him very well acted as well, I have to say.
Oh, for sure.
Darren he's also beefed up as a character in here, as is Gwaine. Gwaine is not this, he doesn't go running around. I think he even stays in King's Landing. He's not as significant a character, it has to be said, Gwaine, but they've obviously felt that they needed an extra person there to be sort of acting as this kind of go-between between Darren and Ormond. So, I think they did well. I'm actually pretty happy with this as a sort of an adaptation that sort of adds to what we've got without taking too much away. In fact, just related to this, one thing which I really like is the addition of Hugh Hammer's wife, because...
Oh, she wasn't.
He may well have been married in the book. We don't know huge amounts about him, but this gives him an extra layer of us now understanding a little bit more of his motivations. And whatever he does in the next episode, I think you're right, Chiv, it's going to be dependent on her. This is going to, whether it's a reaction to what she said to him, whether he's still wanting to be protecting her, whether he's angry, whatever it is, it's going to be about her. It's not about him then. So I really like that addition, just to sort of give him an extra kind of layer as a person.
Yeah. Okay, that's really amazing to hear. Because as we said again, we haven't read this particular book. I read the main series, but I haven't read all this extra stuff. So this is actually really interesting to hear that there's all of this, because it does really make it more like I'm just trying to imagine now, like if Hugh Hammer didn't have any investment in this, and he saw that maybe we'll switch sides, like he could just like go away or something. But like his wife is here, so by default he cannot leave. Which these really sound like really cool, useful additions. Shiv, I felt like you might have had. Did you have something to comment, or like did any of this spark any thoughts for you?
Well, no. It sounds like he may have either confirmed or denied my theory there, and Robert did a good job of towing the line. Yeah, he did a good job. So I still don't know, but it seems plausible.
Yeah, I will say I do like, and I have liked. I think he shows up in season 2, Sir Gwaine. I really did like his character and performance so far. So the fact that he's not even such a big character actually in the books, and then it's always fun to see when something that's kind of small in a book becomes in a very interesting way, not just like in a let's magnify something in kind of like a fake forced way. It's really nice to see something like this happen, and the fact that he isn't such a big character in the books actually makes this whole representation and what the character did, what the actor did as well, actually really cool for me. And I do gotta say, Robert's background actually just reminded me of that. I also really, really love, I said this in I think every episode so far, the armor of the Greens. It just looks so much cooler. That shade of green and the way they pair it with their armor pieces, whoever it is, whether Ormond, Gwaine, or some random soldier, they just look so cool. So yeah, good stuff there. Okay, then I don't know if we have any final thoughts. Maybe we'll swing back in a later point. But I think for now we can jump back to Rhaenyra. So one of the early scenes in the episode is Rhaenyra questioning Helena about her visions. And we also have, again, some of the small council, some of the discussions there. I forgot the gentleman's name. Manderley, Lord Manderley, the Master of Coin. And he's unhappy because he's kind of maybe figuring out that he's being used actually as a scapegoat. And then we have also Missaria kind of trying to fan the flames between Rhaenyra and Daemon. So yeah, this whole setup in King's Landing, I feel like that must have been a huge point in the books. It's the capital situation, the capital. I kind of know that obviously they had to like cut out probably a lot of things, and some things maybe they had to like embellish. But situation King's Landing, like, is this whole thing with money such a huge point in the books? And also Mysaria has this moment where she is talking with this one other lady, and actually I wasn't completely sure who she is. She's very familiar, so maybe Robert, I didn't manage to check that. Probably maybe you can clear this up for us. I feel like she is from like the Flea Bottom, probably. Anyway, they had this discussion about Mysaria kind of being changed herself and trying to like boost herself even more in the world, let's say. So could you maybe enlighten us a little bit, like this whole plotline with Mysaria, and then maybe like the general situation in King's Landing? Could you compare it to the books, and also what's your just general opinion of it within the show?
Yes, just to very briefly pick back up on Gwaine Hightower, because I just checked, because I was interested. In the book, he's mentioned by name 5 times, just 5 times. 2 of those are about his death. So, and he's already dead by this point in the book. So, yeah, he's not a big character. In terms of King's Landing and the money, yes, the money is a significant issue. So they very briefly talked about this back even in season 1, I think, but Team Green were in control of King's Landing at the start of this war. They were there, and they immediately thought, well, we need to secure the cash. They sent a quarter of it to the Iron Bank of Bravos, a quarter of it went to Old Town, a quarter of it went to Castle Rock, and a quarter of it was used as a fighting fund in King's Landing, which they immediately spent most of it to go off and sell swords and things like that. So there was not much left. So when Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, she realizes that she's not got money, and the people have been starving because it's a time of war and there's been naval blockades and all the rest of it. And so it's really hard for her to actually manage King's Landing. And the people start turning against her. As we've started to see here, they start turning against her because of these kinds of things. The Master of Coin, though, in the book, if you remember Lord Celtigar, who was part of her small council, she left on Dragonstone on the show. He is in King's Landing in the book, and he is there and basically does all the wrong things. Trying to raise money, he does a whole load of different taxes. Everybody gets annoyed, and more and more people start getting a little bit revolutionary, let's put it that way. So that's the overall situation. This is a significant factor. It will continue to be a significant factor, and this is why, obviously, in the show, they're hunting for Tywin Lannister, because Tywin Lannister, surely he knows where all of this money has gone. So yeah, that's the situation there, and I really liked, which episode was it? Episode 3, when it was just following Rhaenyra around, showing all of the things
that was a good episode.
Was going on. Yeah, so it was, and that felt to me like in a Song of Ice and Fire chapter. It was a POV, one person's perspective, and we were following her around rather than dotting about from person to person. We were following her around all the time. So I really liked that, and that showed the range of issues that was happening. Yeah, so Mysaria on the show, she brought, I think her name was Sylvie. So this was, you may remember her, she was a brothel owner who's appeared a couple of times. I think she's the one who Aemond was with way back in season 1.
Yeah.
And where we got the first hints of mummy issues from Aemond, it has to be said. You may well have missed that for all that time ago when she was there coming out and it's like, oh, you've grown. So it's like, that's who you chose to go to? Okay. So that's and she was brought up there. And this, I think, was, for me, this was quite interesting because it was just like a random one-off scene. I suspect that Sylvie as a character isn't going to be hugely significant. What they were wanting to show was Mysaria was effectively doing a power grab. She was saying, okay, so Rhaenyra's not going to listen to the people, I will. And she's saying, I'm now the gatekeeper for the Queen. If you want to get to talk to her, you've got to come through me, and I will decide what the Queen listens to and hears. So that's a huge power grab on her part. It's a play on this place changes you, which was also the dragons change you. So that was another thing that they were doing here. And then the third layer to this one, I think, is that it's been, I think, quite subtle, but Team Black's connections to what's going on in the city are being lost bit by bit. So Ulf helped them out at one point. If you remember, he reported, oh, I was in the city and I saw this. Now he's not going to be helping them out doing that kind of thing. Rhaenyra has stopped having these kind of court sessions where people can come in and tell her stuff, so she's not hearing any of that going on. Mysaria had links across, but then that seems to be fracturing as well. Are they going to know what's going on in the city? It's becoming increasingly people in the Red Keep are different and distant to what's happening down in the rest of the sort of the city, and that is something Ormond seems to be playing on with. Daemon came down and was slapping you around in front of everybody, although he couldn't help calling them the commoners. So he could. It was like a little bit. You just sort of the mask slipped for a moment when you were saying "and in front of the commoners," which is like that's probably not how Ulf thought of them as his friends. But the point there was Ormond understood that the people saw Daemon attacking one of their own, and they wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, we talked last week. I think it was last week that all of this happened, that Daemon punched and humiliated. That was last week's episode. We talked about, like, Daemon did that while he was chasing that assassin going on around in the city. And it just always feels like, and I feel like especially Daemon being a hot-headed character, he just keeps doing the 2 step forward, 1 step backward to maybe be the most generous, I guess. Yeah, anyway, sure. What do you think? Like, how? So I know that I know from the internet in general that there's one big thing that's going to happen at some point down the line in King's Landing. But do you have any theories or thoughts where all this train is headed to crashing?
Well, I think someone spoiled like the end and like who ends up being king and all that. Like I think I know, but I'll just try to delete it from my brain and think about how the show's progressing. I do want to, before jumping to that, one shout out because I don't know how to organically add it in there. I know we were talking about some comedy beats throughout the show, and I did laugh out loud when the Master of Coin was trying to plead his case, and then Rhaenyra just changed the subject that got him. I thought that was a pretty funny scene. Kind of reminded me of the SNL sketch with George Washington. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but it reminded me of that. But yeah, so where this train is heading. So Robert brought up a good point about the chess pieces of the dragons, and we have some potentially injured this episode, plus we have people changing sides, so we have all that going on. I know it's bad, and I probably shouldn't be on record saying this, but I'm kind of excited at the prospect of Ormond kind of wreaking havoc and somehow taking control, but I just feel like he's such a side character that's not going to happen. Like I feel like it has to be someone, like it has to be Aegon that ends up, or Aemond, maybe even Daemon. Like one of those characters is most likely if I had to guess, but it would have been a nice like red herring if like someone just came in, just wiped out the family. But maybe that's a future thing. I don't know, but yeah, I like the crazy theories.
Yeah, we do have at least one per episode, so I'm glad we are sticking. But I don't but also to be fair, I don't know how crazy those are.
Yeah, it could happen. It could happen.
It's just the fact that this is one of those shows where, I mean, one of those. I don't know if there is a show like this where it's like, yeah, like 95% of the characters will die for sure. I don't know how, when, or what, for what reason, but like 95% of the characters are gonna die. Like it's just so you're making this like it makes sense.
And to defend my crazy theories, didn't we end up at the end of Game of Thrones with what was it, Bran or whatever, like running the entire game? So it's like if that can happen, I think my crazy theories could happen as well. I'll stick to it.
I mean, this is one of those where I think all bets are valid. But and watch this segue. Something that Rhaenyra would not have bet on was that Daemon would deceive her. Who would have thought? And yeah, to just kind of rush or like skip a little bit to the. So basically, we hear that Sheep Stealer has been seen again. Daemon is chasing around trying to find Rhaena. He does find her. She reveals that she basically has made peace with the fact that she might have to die in order to redeem herself. She's going to try to face Vhagar, and this is her way of trying to, I forgot the word, get some redemption towards Rhaenyra. And around this discussion, as they are facing off Daemon and Rhaena, we have two more dragons arriving, Sir Adam and Rhaenyra herself. And I mean, everybody who came to this point, like, we all saw the episode. There's a whole what's going to happen. Dragons, like, the tension is flaring up. There's a build up. It's getting louder and louder. The dragons are getting angstier and angstier. Rhaena starts fleeing because Daemon told her, like, try to flee, like, they haven't seen you yet. She does get caught. Sheep Stealer is not having this. And yeah, we end up seeing actually this is the biggest dragon fight that we have seen so far. I wonder actually if there will be a bigger one. Who knows? But this was a very big one, and it was just a very big scene. This is one of the things that people were looking forward to when this show was announced, and just seeing dragons fighting dragons on a large scale. And Sheep Stealer is a big dragon, and we also see Daemon being the fighter and him kind of having the most control over his dragon, at least from my perspective. That's how it looked like. So, Robert, could you tell us, did this happen in the book? Did this scene happen in the books? Because I also know in the books there's a character called Nettles or something like this, and Rhaena kind of took over her plotline as far as I understand. So was this scene in the books in some other way? And can you maybe tell us the fate of Sheep Stealer, if it's not a huge spoiler? Because it seems that he might actually be off to die in peace.
Yes, so no, this is not at all in the books. This is completely new. All of this plotline is there. Yes, in the book, then Sheep Stealer is claimed by this character called Nettles. Nobody knows where Nettles comes from. There's lots of rumors. Nettles doesn't look like a Targaryen in any way, shape, or form. Nettles seems to bond with Sheep Stealer by bringing Sheep Stealer sheep, and then so she's then a part of one of these dragon seats. And then the biggest, I'm just trying to work out now, I don't think there's any sort of particular spoilers in this bit, because this has not happened, but you can see where they went with it, was that by this point in the story, then Daemon and Nettles have been sent out to try and find and confront Aemond on Vhagar. So they're sort of like, they've set up their home base down in the Northern Crownlands, and they're sort of going out on these missions every night. But the two of them get close. Now, as I told you, how the book is structured is that, were they lovers? Was this actually some kind of mysterious bastard daughter of his that he's just getting closer to? We don't know. But the fate of Nettles and Sheep Stealer is that they fly off. Various stuff happens that might be spoilery, but they fly off into the Vale of Arryn, into the Mountains of the Moon, and they settle down there, basically. And then we get these kind of like rumors of this Fire Witch years later, and the link across that, if you remember way back in season 1 of Game of Thrones, when you remember the hill tribes that Tyrion comes across when he's sort of coming through with Bronn, one of them is called the Burned Men. Now, the Burned Men, apparently they got their name because they in years gone by, they would go and approach this Fire Witch somewhere in the Mountains of the Moon. And if you could kind of like approach and you'd get a bit of you burned, then you proved your manhood. And so that was the derivation of the Burned Men. And then they, once the dragon had gone, then they sort of had to burn bits of their body to show their manhood, whatever. So there's a link across to that. So yeah, Nettles and Sheep Stealer lived in the Mountains of the Moon in the Vale after the end of the Dance of the Dragons. So that's that whole bit of storyline. So once Rhaena doesn't bond with Sheep Stealer at all, Rhaena, in fact, she's up there in the Vale, and other things happen with her, but not this at all. So the showrunners have created this whole story up, and then yes, this confrontation is completely new. All of that said, if I put my lore hat onto one side, I thought this looked amazing. I loved dragon versus dragon versus dragon versus dragon fight. Great, love it. This is the kind of nerdy stuff I really enjoy. So yeah, if I forget how this fits in, then, and I have got hope that this might bring Rhaena's story back to where it is in the books, because it's quite important what happens with her a bit later.
Oh, okay.
And one of the reasons why everybody was getting quite worked up about it within the Song of Ice and Fire fandom was the fact that we thought, oh, hang on a moment, if you're just going to make her nettles, then that means that she's just going to end up in the Mountains of the Moon. Perhaps what they're saying then is Sheepstealer's going to end up in the Mountains of the Moon. She's not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that sounds like a little compromise that they could do, because it did feel, again, following your videos since season 1 about House of Dragon, like I know that I have been aware of all of these growing deviations from the storyline. So now just watching season 3, it's like, okay, I wonder if this actually did happen. Like I'm kind of trying. I think a lot of people are just being more aware of this, because it's like we know that there are deviations, and this felt like one of these things where, okay, they're kind of taking her away from the dragon. Just kind of felt like not in a bad way, just like felt this something's maybe not vibing here. So this actually tracks, and I love that connection with season 1 of Game of Thrones. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay. So Shiv, what are your thoughts on all of this stuff, especially also that like really cool little lore drop that we just got?
This is why I love having Robert in here. This is so good. I feel like I learned so much just in that one paragraph. It's great. Can make a cheesy joke and say, by the amount of dragons they had in this episode, they should rename the show House of the Dragons. Insert crickets. But that I love that background of it used to be a previous character, and they kind of blended the two together, and like sometimes that's a necessity in the show, like especially with a world as grand as Westeros. The amount of characters like makes sense. I could make a shameless plug here and a plea for Strider to watch The Expanse, because in The Expanse they do this as well, where there's certain characters where they need to, just to fit everything in, they just blend them together. And they're the fans of The Expanse will say they've done a good job of blending those. So there's my plug, and hopefully we convince Strider to watch that show.
We'll get there, I promise. I just need to finish my masterpieces.
All right, I'll give you until then, and then we'll get there. So a couple months. But yeah, like this was very interesting, and I can tie it back to your previous point when you said Damon always makes decisions that are like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is almost another example of that, where he thought he was making the right choice of protecting his daughter, and then it backfires on him in multiple ways with Rhaenyra. So I think that's a good, execution of the writing of, like, you have someone in a predicament where whatever decision they make is probably the wrong one, because it's either he has to harm his daughter or harm his wife or mess up the kingdom. So it's good writing, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out another thing. Watching any animal in any movie or TV show getting hurt.
I was going to say this.
I love the fact that humans seem to be like 99.99% of humans are just wired to feel really bad for, humans dying. It's like, he's an actor, it's fine. But like for animals, it just always feels like an extra level of, no. And this whole fight had moments like this, and especially towards the very end, as Sheepstealer just kind of trying to get away. Like the sound design, the way they made it, like it really sounds like a stray dog being hurt, and then just kind of having to like leave. Obviously, the dog still being a dragon and a terrifying beast, but I just really love how this show. I feel like even more than Game of Thrones, and makes sense because there's obviously way more dragons. They play a way bigger role, so they will have way more time to do this. But I feel like they really managed to make dragons feel real, and like feel like real animals that have, their personalities, and that have, anger, fear, sadness, pain, and all these things. So yeah, Shiv, if you want to jump in with any extra comment on this.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a point I had locked and loaded and I just totally forgot. But yeah, there's like 3 scenes I feel like they've done a good job of displaying that. So The dragon drowning in one of the first episodes was heartbreaking. Aegon's scene with Sunfire already kind of, I guess, in hibernation. I guess we'll get to that. Brumation, hibernation,
we'll be there in a
whatever
minute.
was going on there. We'll get to that. But even that scene was heartbreaking. And then same thoughts. Like, they did a good job with sound design, I guess choreography or blocking of the scene. But yeah, I feel really sympathetic to what in other movies would be considered a monster almost. And if I was to make another tangent, we could go towards the sound design and design of the cave troll in Lord of the Rings. And Peter Jackson specifically wanted to have that sympathetic feeling towards that cave troll. And the sound design, like towards the end, you feel bad for it when
as he's falling down. There's that, yeah.
So yeah, kudos to the team for making a monster or monsters, and you have that sympathy for them, and yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah. So, Robert, I'll come back to you with actually kind of like the same thing, but so with this, Caraxes and Daemon stayed to finish the job, let's say, and Rhaena is taken to King's Landing, put away in confined to some quarters and so on. We have Rhaenyra, who confronts Mysaria about, Mysaria kind of trying to turn Rhaenyra against Daemon. They have this whole discussion about, he did lie, but he didn't betray me. And she's like, but he still did deceive you, and so on and so on. And then they get together. So I think this has already kind of happened before, if I'm not mistaken. If I have not hallucinated this, I think that has happened before. But anyway, this may be a good time to discuss this, because they are two major players in King's Landing. So from Robert, if you have any comments you also want to talk about, like the sound design, dragons with their emotions and so on, and then to lead us from there towards Rhaenyra and Mysaria, their whole connection and so on, you can take over.
I will happily talk away. The sound design I think is great. I mean, I have to admit, I really like, and I wasn't sure to start with, but I now really like the little squeaks and things that Caraxes does and stuff like that. I think that works really well and means that it's not just this kind of roaring dragon. It's that there's like a personality to different dragons as well, which is good. But yeah, so I'll talk about Rhaenyra and Mysaria. So Mysaria is again a character that has been significantly beefed up for the TV show. She is deemed to be quite a mysterious character in the book. It is hinted that there might have been something with her and Rhaenyra, but not much more than that. We can't really read too much into that. The Maesters, one of the things that Maesters tend not to comment on is anything approaching a lesbian relationship. They have just very good lady friends and things like that. So we shouldn't expect that to be mentioned in the book. If we're getting really immersive about this is one of those things that George R.R. Martin is probably okay with. This idea that wouldn't be mentioned in an official Maester history. I mean, I quite like the way that they're showing her as being quite manipulative now of Rhaenyra, and we spent, I think, most of the season just thinking, is she just trying to get at Daemon? Because every opportunity she's got to make Rhaenyra mistrust Daemon, she's immediately leapt on it. But now it seems like there's this extra element. What we were talking about a bit before with that scene in the throne room implies that she is perhaps wanting to become more powerful herself, for herself. Whether she's admitting that or not, I think, is another matter. She is, so in the book, she is one of the last, as we kind of see is happening, is that Rhaenyra is kind of loses people around her who she doesn't necessarily trust. So you get, on the show, we've already lost some of her small council that she left on Dragonstone. Obviously, Corlys went away. The relationship with Daemon is always a little bit fractured. So bit by bit, we're seeing like, well, who is it that she's actually really trusting here? And is it Mysaria? She seemed here to be half turning on Mysaria before Mysaria turned it around. So I think that's something to watch. This is played out, as I say, it's played up in the TV show more than it is in the book. But yeah, I'm quite enjoying it. This one, it's It's one of those things that feels like they've expanded on something that was already hinted at. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it really did feel like pro gamer move. Like, look at me, I'm gonna turn this around in a very, very interesting way. But yeah, I do find this relationship between the two of them very interesting. Especially, I mean, I always first say J.R.R. Martin instead of G.R.R. Martin. He loves having these, what's the term, from like mud to the stars characters that just kind of rise on their own merits, usually with a lot of cunning. But obviously we have Sir Duncan the Tall, who raises on his own through other merits, but people, given that the world is as it is and that the whole world is a Game of Thrones, no matter are you a noble or just like a commoner. So being cunning is usually the way to go, and Mysaria certainly seems to be one of the prime examples of this. So I do think that the actress does a really good job of just portraying slight poker face, but I don't know. She's just really good. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have proper words to like dissect her acting, but I really do love the casting. Shiv, do you have any extra comments here, or we can move on to the final big bit?
I guess my final comment would be the moral of the story, if you're following Mysaria's character, is if there's someone that you have a crush on, what you need to do is deceive them, and then all will work out. There we go.
Makes sense. There we go. This is the way.
I do not endorse this message.
Oh my god. Terms.
Yeah, but let's just go back to, or let's just go towards the final big bit of the episode. That's actually one that I kind of slightly got spoiled on, like a random comment months ago, like maybe even a full year ago. I was like, dang it. But they were hinting at it, and there was a moment, I don't know, at this point, like maybe 3-4 episodes ago, where they do Aegon and Larys kind of bump into where Sunfire is, and Aegon is like, oh, she's still alive. And I guess for a lot of people who have, or most people who have not read the books, including the two of us, it would be like, oh, is he kind of starting to lose it maybe, or is he just like deluding himself or whatever? But of course, we have this huge reveal, and as a build-up towards it, we have this discussion, I don't know, midway through the episode, where Sir Tyland and Larys and Aegon, they're going through the woods and learn that the army is coming. Larys is like, okay, we need to go. Tyland is like, we need to go to Casterly Rock. Aegon is like, no, I'm not. I'm done fleeing. I'm staying here. I'm gonna die as a king, and to hell with it. Come what may. And to his credit, Sir Tyland decides, okay, I stay with my king. And also as a faithful trait to his character, Larys, of course, decides to leave. And then we see the culmination of this little storyline. I mean, little quote-unquote, just in terms of screen time in this episode. They are faced finally with the army. It's only the two of them. Aegon decides to stand up, kind of owns up to, like, basically rolls to intimidate, and his dragon appears. We hear the famous Dracarys, and they are reunited. That was a very very big moment. I wish it was not spoiled to me, but nonetheless, it was really exciting to actually wait for to see it on screen. So it was still in a way rewarding to knowing that it will happen at some point. So let's go to Shiv's impressions, and then we can hear a bit more about how it happened in the books and the more general analysis from Robert.
Yeah, it was a very big surprise. I'm lucky that one wasn't spoiled for me.
I'm happy.
I was kind of rub it in. What I was kind of expecting, which it didn't pan out, was I thought Larys, Aegon, or Tyland would turn on one another to like gain the upper hand. Like, maybe, hey, I captured Aegon, like give me amnesty or something. And like I figured something like that was going to happen. And then when, I might be able to use Robert for this. When we started to hear the army coming in the sound design, you could hear the dragon footsteps. And I was like, wow, those are really loud footsteps. What are those? My brain went to the giants that oh god, I'm gonna get crucified for forgetting their name, but I'm thinking Snow
Wildlings?
Walkers, which is not White Walkers.
White Walkers.
They had a giant. So, like, is it possible in Westeros to have giants around this area that this army was, or are they just in a far off land, and that theory would have made no sense?
They're north of the wall, believed to be long dead by everyone south of the wall.
Okay, so that was far fetched indeed. But my brain went there for a second, and then dragon was a awesome surprise. So
okay,
yeah.
So I'll just jump in here because actually this is a interesting little lore bit that I'm very curious about. I think in the show, I do not remember what's it like in the books. Game of Thrones. I think it is said that the last giant either fought at the wall, and then I guess one giant lived or something, and then there was a giant in the battle of the Bastards, and then I think that's like said to be the last one. Can you tell us, like, was that true? Is this the case, or how many giants were in the battle of the wall, and then afterwards? Can you just clear this up for us?
Yes, so there's a few left now. In the book, we're obviously still only a little bit of the way through the story, so you have to kind of wind it back a little bit. In the books, where we left off at the wall actually is with the assassination attempt on Jon. So that's the last bit we see there, and there is a giant there. One is there, and is actually part of the sort of the inciting incident. So Jon is called outside because the giant's going a little bit crazy because somebody was trying to get past him. And as he's called outside, that's when he gets attacked. So, we've not got to the Battle of the Bastards or whatever the equivalent is in the books. So, they're down to one in Castle Black, put it that way. There may well be more north of the wall.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. I think it's just mentioned. Maybe it could be just like a show thing that was like a passing note that he was maybe like the last giant or something. Or I could also just be mixing it up with something else.
No, they definitely said that on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right. Thank you. Well, then, like, can you give us your thoughts on this whole scene, on this whole reveal, and maybe how it happens in the books? Like, what was like an addition or an omission that they had there?
Well, not for the first time today. I shall say this is all show stuff, not book stuff. But I have to say, I've really enjoyed our comedy trio, who have just spent 7 episodes not agreeing where they're going to go, and I'm pretty sure that the place that they ended up, in the background, you could still see that same carriage that they were in episode 1, and they'd literally just been walking around in circles for 7 episodes. So that's been quite fun. So in the books, I shall try and phrase this in a non-spoilery way, Aegon and Larys disappear from King's Landing just sort of as it falls, and then nobody knows where they are, and then they reappear somewhere else later in the narrative. Sunfire is badly injured, and in roughly the same kind of way, and is kind of left there to die. A couple of intrepid people think, hey, I'll come and try and kill a dragon and get called a dragon slayer, and fail. And then Sunfire just kind of like manages to struggle off. Couldn't fly originally, so was just sort of like hopping and then doing short flights, disappeared off somewhere, and eventually did find its way back to Aegon in the aforementioned place that I'm not going to mention, where Aegon went to. So yes, the high-level thing that Sunfire was badly injured for a very long time and then came back and found Aegon, that is true. Tyland didn't have any fun with pirates. He didn't nearly drown. He didn't appear back up here. He was in King's Landing, and poor guy got tortured because they were trying to find where all the money was. So all of that bit is completely different. And so Larys and Aegon did disappear, but we don't get any of their story. So this is all show-only stuff. But yeah, I've enjoyed the 3 of them. In terms of has their story developed over this time? Well, I suppose Aegon has, this is in the show, Aegon has swapped having Larys to having Tyland, and he didn't have a dragon, and now he's got a dragon. And that probably is the sort of extent of it, really, isn't it? But that scene I actually quite liked. It kind of showed another side to Aegon that he seems to have taken on board Larys's criticism of him.
Yeah, from the previous episode.
And you saw it a couple of different times. Last episode, he was asking Tyland whether he thought that he was a good man and a good king, and Tyland was doing all of no. Well, I suppose in many ways we're all just good people, and it was just like, and you could tell that he just like, no, I'd much rather have somebody who actually just tells me the truth, even if they think I'm not going to like it. So he'd learned from this, and here again he'd sort of learned again in that he wanted to die a king in a good and noble way. And it was certainly, I think, noticeable that he was kind of gaining in strength as his dragon was gaining in strength. What he was like in episodes 1 and 2 was, almost incapacitated, barely able to move. And then by the time we got to here, he's much more spry and happily riding and walking around, and so's his dragon. So the bond between them is very strong. And it has to be said, Sunfire is mentioned as the most beautiful dragon. And he actually, Aegon, the link between him and Sunfire is noticeably strong in that he even takes this as his personal sigil, a golden dragon, to show it's his dragon. So that's the extent of the link between them. So yeah, show-only stuff, but this was fun. I'll be intrigued where they go with this next, because you can't exactly hide a dragon. And we've now got a dragon and Aegon and Tyland lost somewhere. I'm not entirely sure exactly where they were supposed to be. Somewhere in the Northern Crown Lands, I think. And what's going to happen to them next? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
That was fun. I think I kind of noticed on like a subconscious level that what you just said about Aegon also getting better as his dragon is getting better. But actually now that I hear it said, it's like, oh yeah, like really, it really is so. Like he unalived one guy like in the previous episode, like he would not have done that like 3 episodes ago. So that's a great point. Like, Shiv, did you kind of notice this development of Aegon? And yeah, what do you think of this connection with him and his dragon?
Yeah, so I didn't notice that, and I thought that was a great connection. One thing now I want to go back and revisit is the sound design when Aegon kind of puts his head on Sunfire when he thinks it's still alive, which we find out it is alive. I want to say I heard something like breathing. Does anyone else remember that? Am I crazy?
I think I might have had a similar thought, and I think it was maybe something very subtle that just kind of makes you like, did I hear it or not? And I guess in hindsight it would probably make a lot of sense.
So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go revisit that, because I think they gave you a bit of a hint there, which is a pretty subtle nod, which is cool. But yeah, end of the episode, huge shock to me. I think an interesting question to ask Robert, I got to figure out the best way to word this is, like, you're coming into this fandom with extensive knowledge of Westeros, and you're kind of at the advantage of knowing what should happen and all that. Do you feel, it sounds like from hearing you throughout this episode, you welcome some of the changes, like maybe there's certain aspects of the book you would have loved to see depicted, but overall, are you feeling like the changes being made in this show kind of amplify? Like, is there an over-under to this? Like, do you feel like there's more positives than negatives? Like, where do you land in that front of this fandom?
I think it's complex. I mean, I always shy away from like this is brilliant or this is terrible. There are many aspects. So I think there are some scenes and things that I think are really good. We've not mentioned it, but Helena's dreams. Very excited by that. I liked the expansion on things, as I said, but things like Ormond, for example. But then there's other stuff that I've not liked. So Daemon, I'm a massive Matt Smith fan, but Daemon is, particularly last season, he's a whole lot less kind of proactive and dangerous and things like that than he is in the books. So there are some things that I go, I'm not so sure about. And I mean, George R.R. Martin's biggest gripes tend to be to do with what he did, this very famous blog post that was deleted shortly afterwards, that ended with him talking about toxic butterflies, the butterfly effect of a change you make early on, and what the impact of that is. going down the line. And so the nerd in me completely agrees with things like he took issue with this idea that Sheepstealer could be in the Vale of Arryn because he says dragons do not roam. Now, fine, it's his world. He thinks dragons do not roam. I get it. And so on one level, you just say, but technically that's not right. But his argument was not just, technically I'm right and you're wrong. It was because if dragons roam, then they wouldn't stay on Dragonstone because there's 3 dragons on Dragonstone who don't have riders. A Cannibal, who is incredibly dangerous and aggressive, Grey Ghost, who they've not really mentioned in this, and Sheepstealer. And if Sheepstealer roams, then the other 2 probably would have done as well. And then you've got dragons roaming all over Westeros who would be interfering with every single plotline that you could possibly imagine. But as it happens, dragons do not roam. They pick a home base and then they might range out and find food, but they don't go unless they're ridden somewhere or in case there's some massive driving force pushing them somewhere. And he says if you go even further back in time, you go to the Doom of Valyria, which is one of these great foundational moments, the Valyrian freehold, which was all of these great dragon riders. The Targaryens were just one of 40 dragon riding families. Then the Doom of Valyria happened, massive volcano explosions, lots of theories as to why that happened, but the big point is that all the dragons died, other than the Targaryens and 1 or 2 other randos that died through other reasons a little bit later, but it's just like they all died. Why? Because dragons do not roam. Dragons stayed there where they were. And he says, if dragons roam, then actually what we've got is a situation where the Doom of Valyria wouldn't have got rid of all of the dragons, and so we wouldn't have this story here in the first place, where the only dragon riders are the Targaryens. Dragons would be absolutely everywhere. So that's the kind of thing that gets the kind of the lore nerds kind of worked up, is the internal inconsistencies. And so I sort of hinted at this issue with Rhaena, is that Rhaena, from her perspective, she's got a story that will happen later on, that it looked like that wasn't going to happen. That kind of gets us worked up. Nettles is a character that a lot of people liked, and so that was annoying that she wasn't in this, but then also was this added element of, but then what does that mean for Rhaena? So yeah, it operates on a number of different levels. On a basic level with all of these things, I don't talk about stuff, say things about stuff online unless I actually enjoy it, because life is too short to just spend my time criticizing stuff that I'll just stop talking about it and I'll talk about something I do like. So as long as I'm talking about it, it's because I'm enjoying it. And I like shows with dragons and politics and silly jokes and big battles. This is my stuff. I love it. I just very randomly remembered one thing that you asked me that about half an hour ago that I forgot to mention. Sabbatha Frey. I think you asked me about Sabbatha Frey, which was, so she's the other character who's in the small council. She was the one who got given Harrenhal sort of on a whim by Rhaenyra in this episode.
Go take it.
Just you go off and do it. Which I am hoping leads to one of my favourite throwaway comments, which was that she did in the books, she doesn't come all the way down to King's Landing, but she does claim Harrenhal, and then a dragon I won't name for fear of spoiling things come and she hides in the privy until it goes away, which is just like quite an amusing moment. But anyway, that was a big digression.
No, that was
wow.
Yeah, like that was my reaction. So I was like, yeah, please just go on for 20 more minutes. I'm having the best time. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's yeah, because I mean, this is the beauty of having anyone who is super passionate and also super knowledgeable about any specific thing. You can get this multi-layer perspective that, I read the main series. I look around things on the internet and so on, but I'm in no way any kind of remotely lore expert. Like I could say for myself, for example, for the Lord of the Rings, and it's like this is why it's amazing to have a guest like you, because it's like, okay, you get all these, like, I mean, to connect all of this to like Doom of Valyria all the way back, like, not anyone can do this. So that was an absolutely amazing it's not even a digression, like you did answer the question. So it was just like a very elaborate way to say it. Shiv, do you have any hard to follow up on this, but it was a great answer to your question, I think.
blown away by that answer. It's perfect. And yeah, just to like reiterate too, like Strider and I are in the Lord of the Rings space, Rings of Power, and all that, and we have similar viewpoints on changes that are made through a show. But similar to you with Westeros, Robert, like with us, it's like Rings of Power made some changes, and some of them are stronger than others. But overall, we enjoy the show. We enjoy watching it. We enjoy discussing it. So it's great to find others that have a passion for these nerdy shows. So hopefully the last question. I don't want to keep you too long, but this question popped up, and it hopefully is an easy answer. It came up during your discussion on where Sheep Stealer goes. How long do dragons survive for? Like, what's their age range typically?
It's not an easy question to answer, unfortunately. But I will give you the short version. The problem we have is that we don't have the ancient history of all of what happened in Valyria. So the only dragons we've really got much of a handle on are the dragons that we read about in the books in Fire and Blood, and obviously Dany's dragons. Dany's dragons are still small. No idea how old they're. The dragons that we have in the history of Westeros as we know it mostly don't die of old age. It has to be said. So we've only got a handful of examples. So Balerion was, let me just try and work this out. So Balerion was born just before coming across, so that's 100 years. So was over 200 and something years. I forget the exact number. So Balerion was pretty old. But the question, Balerion sort of died of old age, but we do know that not long before that, Balerion also got quite badly injured in an incident where he went flying off somewhere that he probably shouldn't have done, and sort of came back, and it was like, what on earth happened there? Because you're kind of impressively large and powerful, and you've got this massive gash down your side. But then we've got other, so like Cannibal, who I kind of mentioned in passing, possibly is as old or even older, but we don't really know because nobody knows how old Cannibal is. As for the others, I mean, I hope it doesn't spoil too much. Quite a few die in the Dance of the Dragons, let's put it that way. So, and then we got Meraxes of the original 3 that invaded Westeros. Then Vhagar we know about, and then the other was Meraxes, who got shot down over Dawn. So they don't tend to survive. I mean, on the basis of the information we have, you would say a good dragon age is 200 to 300 years, but
wow,
we don't have full information.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess in this world, it makes sense that they are not going to live too long. Okay, so we went off a bit longer than usual for absolutely amazing reason, because it was an absolutely packed episode, and it's 3 of us, usually it's 2 of us. I would like to squeeze in just one more tiny question, because we didn't talk about it, and I would just like to hear, and you can make it like in 2 sentences, or however long you want, but I'm happy if you even do just 2. Helena and her dreams, because she's such a wonderful character, and I mentioned earlier in one of the previous episodes that G.R.R. Martin is very happy with her extended portrayal in the show, as far as I understand things. So if you just want to throw like your opinion on her, or if you want to comment on the dreams, whatever you want to just add quickly onto that, and then we can kind of wrap up.
Very happy to. Just picking up on Balerion, because
Please.
I had to check because I don't like leaving you with half. Yes, the best guess is 208, at least 208 years old. So that's what we got there. In terms of Helena, yes, George R. Martin has said he really likes this kind of addition to her character, because in the book, then and the Maesters often sort of dismiss people like they're just simple-minded or something like that. And so just to add to this is that she was actually, yes, she is simple in the best possible way, but she's also clearly a dragon dreamer, and this I love, because it's also a dragon dreamer that it was more of a kind of a Cassandra figure for most of this time, in that most people didn't really pay much attention. What we saw this time was very exciting, because we saw her in one of her visions. Well, we had the vision at the very end. She was there on Dreamfire. Now, that's the first view we've had of Dreamfire, and Dreamfire I thought looked amazing. This is something that the fans have been looking for, the book fans have been looking for, not only because Dreamfire is speculated to be the mother of the 3 dragon eggs that Dany had, which kind of like leaves a kind of a link across there. But also Princess Rhaena, who not the one we know, a previous generation was the previous rider, and she was really cool. So we've got a lot there that people kind of like go, ooh, this is quite good and exciting, and almost certainly this is the last new dragon we're going to see in the show. We haven't seen Cannibal, we haven't seen Grey Ghost, but I don't think they will show us them. I think there's enough dragons now. The people don't need more. It might just get confusing. So yeah, we had her there. I think book readers will have looked at what was happening in that scene, not spoiling things, and gone, what's going on there? And then there was also the scene when she's there with her children and the chickens. If you remember, she said she wanted to keep chickens, which I thought was a nice little touch. And then there seemed to be an eclipse of the sun, and then it started snowing, and it was like, is this that she's now having a vision of the long night? I liked this because it showed us that these dragon dreams are not what Rhaenyra was wanting, which was military intelligence. It wasn't this kind of like, where's this person? What's going on over there? This is just something which you have to interpret, and you may or may not have the information that allows you to interpret that properly. So yeah, I loved it. I particularly loved the early stuff when she wasn't being, no attention was being paid to her at all. There was like before the Cargill twins fight, then she had scribbles on her wall with like the sigil of the Cargills fighting each other, and there was like loads of these just little things dropped in there that I would love to do an analysis of all of the different things that she's stitching and has scribbled somewhere, and that someone's got Aru's own work to be doing there. I think it's mixing up my worlds here, but that's I really loved and appreciated it, and I think that the George R. R. Martin liked it. At least he certainly liked it season 1, and I think that is it Fia Saban, I think is the actress's name. I think she's doing a fantastic job as well.
That is correct. Well, I mean, that was an absolute delight of an answer, and she really is. She really is a wonderful character. I mean, she and I think we kind of make it a point to basically mention her as much as possible, because she kind of flies down like under the radar because of the nature of her whole storyline. But the actress is just absolutely amazing. Chip, any final thoughts?
No,
on like the whole.
I'll end up asking questions, and then we'll be here for another hour. So I don't want to do that.
No more questions. We're done. I have some as well, but we're gonna cut it out here.
But yeah, no, this was amazing. I feel like I have a better understanding of what's to come now. Really excited. So I look forward to seeing Robert's theories after the finale airs and see where that goes.
Yeah, as I said, that was the full answer. Robert, this was really absolutely amazing to have you here. It was just such a packed episode, and then having you here with us to just expand on all the cool things and to just help us like understand and appreciate this whole episode and the show more. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was just an absolute delight, so hopefully we can have you back again very soon. Maybe we can do, I don't know, something sooner down the line rather than waiting for season 4. Because it was just so much fun. Thank you so much for being with us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to talk about these things, and particularly with you gentlemen, and and also supporting the channel. So hopefully then we can grow this nice and quick.
That would be the dream. Let's see. Maybe Dreamfire can help us. I don't know. Maybe it was a nice omen. Well, I guess with that we can wrap up this episode. I really hope people tune in for this one, because it was an absolutely amazing one. I had so much fun. I'm going to rewatch it because I just had so much fun listening to the whole discussion, or being a part of it. So yeah, with that, we finished this one. We'll be back next week for the finale of season 3. It's already here. I guess 2 months have basically passed very quickly. So yeah, with this, thank you very much. Thanks to Shiv, thanks to Robert, and thanks to however many people finished to the end. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.